this is Megan from You Go to Beginning. Today we are out here with our goats. We're going to recap the 2024 lambing and kidding season. I learned some pretty important lessons this year, and so I kind of wanted to share overall how our season went, what some things went wrong, and what things I've learned and can make sure I do better next year. But overall, we had a great season. We've got some babies out here playing, and so let me go through all our births this year and talk to you about what I learned and show you how those all went. We had a lot, and it was pretty awesome this year. So this season we had 10 births on our farm. That is the most we've ever had. Last year we would have had 5. So we literally doubled the number of births we had on farm. And so with it came some problems. But first off, we started out with sheep. So Spots and Luna are proven ewes. They lambed for the 3rd time this year, and they both did awesome. Spots gave birth to twin ewe lambs, and she did great. She didn't need any help. We woke up, they were there, and she took care of those babies. They have since raised up, and we have sold them to a new home. Luna likewise did great. Now she had a little bit of a dramatic birth. Both of her ram lambs were trying to come out at the same time, but I think I did help pull that first one because they were in the barn and I was there to help, which was awesome. But I don't know that she would have technically needed me. I think she was getting it done on her own. Did great. Those boys are getting bigger. We still have them on farm. We're thinking about selling them as well, but for the moment we're just raising them up. They may be future meat for us. Just kind of depends on the decisions we have to make for our farm moving forward this summer. After those 2 proven ewes, we started in on the goats. So Ivy, my most professional mom goat, this was her 4th kidding with us, but I believe it's actually her 5th freshening. So she kidded with us. She gave us 3 triplet doelings, and she was great. Her labor was a little long, but we had some friends over that day, and goats, kind of know their people and feel comfortable with us, and so just a little uncomfortable with some guests, but overall she did great. No issues. I did go in and check her because it was taking so long, and I don't regret that. I don't think I needed to at all, but I can't learn if I don't try things, and so I'm happy with the experience and having gotten to try that and kind of see what it feels like in there. I haven't ever needed to, which I'm so thankful for, but I'm actually thankful for that practice. So I did do that. Next up was Tansy with our quintuplets, and she did awesome. We were here, we moved her over, and she surprised us with number 5. 1 through 4 came out very, very quickly, especially 2, 3, and 4 came out within seconds of each other. Number 5 came out a few minutes later, but all healthy, excellent babies. And she's probably got the first lesson for me, kind of an Ivy Tansy combo. Both mamas did excellent, but with 5 babies, I knew I'd have to bottle feed. So I pulled 2 bucklings to bottle feed, but I waited until they were about 3 days old to make sure that they were getting colostrum, and I was checking and weighing everybody to make sure that everybody was getting some, and they were. So Tansy makes the most milk on our farm, and she did great. But waiting those 3 days, I'm not sure if I'd do that again. So they definitely had to be bottle fed. And by waiting those 3 days, it made bottle feeding really hard. I kind of meant to make a bottle feeding video, and it never quite worked out. But it was really, really hard to get those boys to take a bottle. And so I could have pulled them immediately and bottle fed. I don't know that I would have had enough colostrum on hand. So that's part of it. I've been trying to collect and save some from our goats, but I still probably don't have enough for an entire birthing. So that's where my inexperience shows. I don't know how much colostrum I would need to have on hand to do that. So I don't know that I regret not pulling the boys right away, but it was definitely challenging to get them to bottle feed, but I did not have to get up in the middle of the night because they were on their mama. So it's trade-offs, struggling to bottle feed or getting up and probably having a smoother time with bottle feeding, but having to get up a shift in the middle of the night, which we chose not to do. So that's kind of is almost like a half lesson, a bonus tip. I'm not sure which way I would do it again in the future. But this also combos with then I left 3 on Tansy and 3 on Ivy. And by about week 4-ish, my sweet mamas are done. So they had plenty of milk. They had no problem feeding their triplets, but goats only have 2 teats. And by about week 4, their patience level had tanked. So at the beginning, both mamas stood beautifully for the 2 sets of goats to get plenty of time to nurse. But as they started to get older and feistier and more demanding, both mamas definitely stop being so patient, and the smallest of the triplets started to show that they were not getting as much milk as their siblings. So we did go ahead and actually start supplementing one of Ivy's triplets and one of the remaining 3 on Tansy. And I think that was definitely the right call. It also allowed us, both of them took it immediately, which is funny. I think they understood the value of the milk and they were eating other foods. I don't know why it was so much easier. But both of those girls took the bottle instantly. And so we were actually able to sell all 4 babies. So 4 of Tansy, we were able to sell a bunch of them as bottle babies, and that just made life a lot easier for everybody. So it's kind of a lesson in there. If you've got triplets, be paying attention to not just how much milk your mamas have, but how patient they are. And make sure that the babies are getting it. So this is the 2nd year in a row. We had triplets and quads last year. So I pulled one of the quads. Same thing, same story. They can feed the babies, but they get impatient once they get a few weeks old. So be watching for that if you have goats and they're having multiples. It might not just be about having enough milk, but it might be about being patient enough. So let's see, the next birth was Cedar. She gave birth. We just woke up one Saturday morning. Sorry, the cat is down here and he is just begging for some cuddles and it's very distracting. Cedar was the next one. She gave birth all on her own. We came down and she had a single buckling all on her own. She did great. I always am... I'm bummed when I miss them. I really enjoy watching the birthing process. And of course something could have gone wrong, but I think she's a good reminder that most of the time it really does go well. So I'm thankful that everything went well and we didn't have any issues. And Cedar was great. So after those, that's 5 mamas down. And I think we had 5 more to go. And this is when the trouble started. So next up was my 2 yearling ewes, and they gave birth within a few days of each other, maybe about a week or so apart. And, okay, seriously, this cat, y'all. Hi, buddy. Yes, I know. You're so cute. Yes. Okay, I need to finish my video. Hello, buddy. The 2 yearling ewes. So the first one gave birth to twin ewe lambs out in the field. She did great. She cleaned them up. They were all good to go. It rained like crazy the next day and I missed it. I dropped the ball. So this is the biggest lesson I learned this season, 2024 kidding, is to make sure the baby's temperature is good, that they're getting the milk that you think they are. Trying to think what I would do differently. So mostly for this, what happened was they were born and then there was a rainstorm the next night. Actually, it was that they were born early Thursday morning and there was a rainstorm Thursday night. And Friday, I checked on them and they seemed okay, but I did not think to take their temperature. I did not think to actually go dry them off because it was medium warm. It was fine for us, but in hindsight, it was probably only about 60 degrees, and that's going to be pretty cold to a wet lamb who I think also was not getting enough milk from mama. So that, I don't know how I would have known that. She was up, she was nursing. It seemed like everything was fine. If I had been checking temperature, I probably would have noticed that they were cold, and that would have made me investigate the milk situation. But the biggest lesson is just don't ignore rain. And I should have pulled those babies in and made sure that they were dry. So that was my mistake. That's the thing I have learned this time for sure. I will know to do better next time. I'm definitely not going to make that same mistake, letting a baby get wet and then not checking its temperature and making sure it's all dry and good to go. The second yearling ewe, also lamb, she had one ram lamb. I did help pull a little, and I don't know if he would have been stuck or not. He was pretty tight, so I'm glad I helped, and definitely was freaked out that he was not getting enough milk because of that ewe lamb. And so I think he was fine the whole time, but I was second guessing myself, and it didn't hurt him any for me to weigh him and to take his temperature a bunch and make sure that he was getting what he needed. So that was probably all on me. That birth felt hard as well. Like I felt like that lamb was struggling, but I don't think he was. I think he was fine. That was me. After our two lambs, just a few days later, so that was Thursday and Sunday, and then I think Monday is when our goat Aspen gave birth. We went out for an errand and we came home, and it's just really cool how God ordered Aspen's birth. This one was not a mistake, but was also really tough, and it's just neat to see how God ordered it. Because we just lost the lamb, and because I was not home when she gave birth, when I got home, it was a pretty warm day, probably 70s, but windy. And so normally I wouldn't worry about a baby. The mamas do such a good job. I don't normally worry about that. But mama was a first-time mom and wasn't really paying attention to baby. And so the first thing I thought of is I better take her temperature, help her get dried off, and make sure that we're all good. In the rush of, or just the excitement of trying to dry her off and get her down to the barn, I remember checking to see if she was a doeling or a buckling and pulling up her tail and going, "Why do you look funny?" and saying it's a girl, and then being unsure, which is silly because once you've done goats for a while, it's very obvious when you lift their tails. And we brought her down to the barn, and I grabbed the thermometer and went to check, and I couldn't seem to take a temperature. And I was like, I just figured I was crazy, and maybe I was just flustered, so I kind of stopped, set the baby down. A friend was here with me, so I got a towel, picked baby up, and we both checked again. And that is when we discovered for real that she was missing that part, atresia ani, I think is what it's called. Her rectum had not formed, and so her digestive tract was not finished. And I'm just so thankful that God put her at that timing, because I have no idea how long I would have gone without noticing that. I've never taken the temperature of a baby fresh out of its mom. I've never needed to. So that's not something I do. I don't check their temperatures. I probably will more now. But prior to this, I didn't do that. I didn't need to do that. All the babies were good. It also, like if I had been home, I probably wouldn't have, I would have just helped dry her off. And I have no idea when I would have noticed that something was wrong. And that could have led to a lot of suffering. That poor baby obviously could not continue living. And I would have just hated for her to have suffered longer. So I'm so thankful that that God just ordered those steps exactly how they needed to be. I'm sad for the loss, but I'm so thankful for the lessons. And that is what God put in place. So I would check that baby. And although it was hard, she did not have to suffer at all. We were able to put her down right away and just move on. So I'm so thankful for that timing and God's kind of presence in that whole situation. So that was a couple of rough things in a row, but we did all right. Then we actually did find Aspen, and our littlest one, Spoinky, she had been really struggling with worms. We actually found them a new home, and they got some dedicated attention. Spunky actually was not doing very well at all, which is just interesting. Just kind of a failure to thrive here on our farm. Like, everybody kind of gets the same treatment, and it's tough when an animal doesn't thrive in our environment. But it is a working farm, and I'm not running a sanctuary, and so I try my best, but I also can't invest over and beyond into any single animal without there being some extra cost. So I never want to be cruel or unkind, but I'm also not going to treat them like a pet. They're just not. So we were able to find them a new home, and hopefully they're doing well. I don't really have any further updates from them, but that's okay. And then we were just down to 2. We just had Wisteria and Maple. They were the last ones. And Wisteria gave birth while we were gone for the eclipse. No issues. She did great. And a few days later, after what felt like forever, Maple gave birth for us as well. And I did assist with Maple. I'm always glad to watch and be there. Baby felt really tight in there. I don't know that she was stuck. I'll bet Maple would have got her. But she had pushed quite a bit, and I was happy to help. So I really just kind of held traction and did help kind of stretch Maple to make sure that baby could come out. I weighed baby. She was only 4 pounds, and so that's not huge. It's not tiny either, but I'm not sure. So I'll watch her next year, but honestly, I think she'll be just fine. It is something in the back of my mind, though, to make sure that she's okay for next year. So, let's see. I've talked about all the lessons to make sure that I monitor temperature, to make sure that I'm actually examining everybody for all of their body parts, which I didn't realize was a thing. I learned to make sure about bottle feeding and triplets, and monitor those triplets, and don't be afraid to supplement after a few weeks when mamas get tired of standing there forever for babies to nurse. I also learned that I really enjoyed having the animals birth. Several of the goats birthed outside in the field and not in the barn, which just the barn feels so much dirtier, even if it's cleaned up. And then you have to change bedding and all this stuff. I really like the fresh grass because we move our animals so much. So outside is better in some ways, but there's no cameras outside, so that's harder too. And the last thing, a big lesson for me was to not breed my animals so young. So 2 of my ewes and 4 of my mama goats were all first fresheners, all yearlings. They were very young themselves, and I'm kind of animals know what to do, they'll be okay type person. I'm not a jump in and intervene all the time type person. And I'd heard both ways. I'd done some research and learned, and some people breed everybody as yearlings, and some people definitely skip that year, especially since they're not Nigerian dwarfs. They do not cycle. I think polyestrus is the word. They are not polyestrus. They just go into heat in the fall. So if you skip a year, that first year, you have to wait a whole year. You can't just wait a few months. Anyway, I had wanted to breed them early because I thought they would be fine, and I'd seen people, have good luck. And overall, several of mine did have good luck, and I've done it before. Both Cedar here and Willow from the year before, they both, I kidded them their first year as well. But overall, I think I'm gonna back off of that. I think I'm going to wait more. I had tough luck with the sheep and their milk supply. I feel like both Maple and Wisteria were older than all of the other yearlings. They were born earlier in the year, and they did the best out of all of my yearling animals. And so I want to kind of keep that. Tansy, my mama here who had 5, she skipped that first year and was bred the second year, and she had triplets as a first freshener, but she was, the full 2 years old. And I'm curious to see if that plays out. So definitely next season, I'm going to keep some of these babies, and I'm not going to breed them next season. and I'm going to change that. So that's a wrap on kidding season 2024, kidding and lambing season 2024. We had 10 births, which is double what we had last year, and just a lot going on. And when overall it really did go well. I am excited with their animals. I'm excited for the little ones that I'm going to keep and raise up, and over the next few years see how they do themselves. But if you have any lessons you've learned from lambing or kidding this year, or even in past years, I'd love to hear your advice, tips, or tricks down in the comments. Any lessons you've learned. I know that I'm always learning. I'm gonna keep making mistakes. I just hope that I don't make the same mistake twice. And I appreciate y'all watching. I hope you have some baby animals near where you are to enjoy. Spring is here and summer is coming. We're getting excited for the garden and all that comes with it. But thank you for watching. We appreciate you, and we will see you next week.